and thank you for joining us this hour here on i24 News for special coverage of the Maccabiah opening. I'm Tal Heinrich. Just like the Olympics, the Maccabiah takes place once every 4 years. It's a celebration of sports, Jewish heritage, and culture. With me in the studio here is Mr. Simi Rieger, basketball commentator for Israel Sports 5 and former basketball coach. Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And today we will also take you live to the opening ceremony of the 20th Maccabiah Games in Jerusalem. Our correspondents Jonathan Regev and Mike Wagenheim are there with special guests and the final preparations before the delegations start their March of Nations. Jonathan Regev, you're getting ready for the big kickoff in Jerusalem's Teddy Stadium. Tell us what's on the lineup for tonight.
Yes, Tal, as you have mentioned here at the Teddy Stadium, basically all the preparations are over. And as you can see here behind me, the fans are already coming in, and we're seeing around us all different flags from all the more than 80 countries participating. Nearly 10,000 athletes participate in these Maccabiah Games. They're right now standing at the basketball arena, which is just across the road from Teddy Stadium where we are. And in just about an hour's time, at 8 o'clock local time, they will make the short way from the arena here to Teddy Stadium, and the ceremony will start. It promises to be a very emotional and exciting evening here in Jerusalem. One that will be attended by the highest dignitaries here in the country. President Reuven Rivlin will be here, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat, all of them will be in attendance. And not only that, also former Maccabiah participants, like, for example, Tal Brody, who came to Israel for the 7th Maccabiah back in 1965, 52 years old. He's still here in Israel. We caught up with him a few minutes ago, and he spoke of the importance of the Maccabiah, both for him and the entire Jewish people around the world. Let's listen.
Well, my main dream was the NBA, but after coming to Israel in the 7th Maccabiah, 1965, only 25 countries, 1,250 Jewish athletes from those 25 countries, and to be here today with over 10,000 Jewish athletes from 80 countries, it's going to be amazing, just amazing. Each one that comes here, some make aliyah, but one is the most important thing. As hard as they fight for the medals in the Maccabiah Games, they go back and start fighting for Israel as well, against anti-Semitism, against the BDS, and they're our best army outside of the country.
Indeed, exciting. Jonathan Regev, thank you so much for this report. And now, another key location in Jerusalem tonight is the basketball arena. That's where the delegations from around 80 countries are getting ready for their march inside the stadium right before the opening ceremony begins. Our Mike Wagenheim, you were there throughout the day. How great is the excitement right now?
Paul, Jerusalem, the basketball team won the Israel's championship here just a few weeks ago, but I don't think the arena was as loud that night as it was here this afternoon. Nearly 10,000 athletes gathering inside the arena, meeting and greeting, getting to know each other, enjoying some good times. And now they're all lining up, getting ready to go across the street into Teddy Stadium. All the delegations in a row right now. We see Brazil, of course, in the yellow, Canada in the red and white, and the delegations lining up behind them. Possibly no more of a relevant time to be here in Israel right now than for the India delegation. It's been a bromance this week between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli PM, as they're meeting here in Israel for the very first time. We spoke with the head of the India delegation about what it's like to be here at such a special moment.
So here we are, the Indian sports team, all Jewish boys and girls in a community that's hardly 5,000 to 6,000 in a population of 1.3 billion. So you can imagine it's not so easy to bring a team across. But we have our usual cricket, youngsters, we've got badminton, men, women, and we've got swimming.
Mike Wagenheim, you know, speaking of politics, the Maccabi organization, which is the organization behind the Maccabiah event, it's not a political affiliated organization, although we can say that this event is a Zionist event because the Maccabi Union is a Zionistic movement, I guess we can say. How is this aspect playing out there tonight?
Honestly, there hasn't been much of a talk or a feel that this is a Zionist activity in any way. We've seen very few flags or anything of the sort merging countries together, anything like that. The Jewish Agency, of course, having a presence here today. They've run programs. It's not just an athletic competition. It really is a get-to-know Israel type of program. And in that sense, you could consider it Zionist. But most of the people here are just concerned more about meeting fellow Jews from other countries, getting the experience of competing in such a large event together, and I think the Zionist aspect of it has really taken a back seat.
Mike Wag and I will go back to you in just a short while. And now, Simi Rieger, you're here in the studio with us. You've been living in Israel for many years, but originally, I can tell the audience, you're from New York. And what's your Maccabiah story?
My Maccabiah story is in 1981, I was coaching in Maccabi Haifa. I went to the States to see I had a friend who was, Bernie Fine, was the coach of the Maccabi team. I went to see the team work out, and I recruited Willie Sims and David Blatt to come play for me. And they're still here till today. This is 36 years later, and they really thank me for everything I did for them. At least Willie does. David, you know, he's
been here and away.
He's too important now. And it's really been a pleasure. I mean, you know, today it's more of a thing that the Jewish community gets together and they see each other, because Jewish athletes have cut down in the talent-wise, because of computers, and you know, the 30% of athletes are less now around the world than they were 10 years ago before everything started, and also goes for the Jewish community also. It's a very good happening. It's something that it's, I can't say propaganda, but it shows the country and it shows the atmosphere here, and it takes away from a lot of the speculation of what goes on in this country when they go back to their friends in their country and explain what it was like.
Well, and 10,000 athletes arrived in Israel this summer from 80 different countries. They will compete in 45 different sports, but it's not only about sports, as Mike Wagenheim and Simi told us. Long before the State of Israel was even established, the Maccabiah kicked off. And let's take a look back by i24 News, Jonathan Serrero, of how it all started.
Russian-born Yusuf Yekutiel came up with the idea of the Maccabiah Games in 1912, with the aim of unifying the body and mind. He was inspired by the spirit of Mattathias the Hasmonean and his son Judah Maccabi, who successfully defeated the Greek army of Antiochus Epiphanes in 160 BCE. Their success was due to their courage and bravery in resisting the assimilation edicts laid down by the Greek rulers of the land of Israel. Yekutiel was influenced by the ideals of Theodor Herzl and the other fathers of Zionism and wanted to honor them by organizing an Olympic Games exclusively for Jews. In 1912, he traveled to Switzerland to meet with the Olympic Committee to pitch his new idea. But the Olympic Committee rejected it, saying it would come into direct competition with the Olympic Games for stateless athletes. Yekutiel was undeterred. Even being drafted into the Ottoman army of World War I did not prevent him from trying to turn his dreams into reality. But it was not until 1929 that he was able to make his way to the Maccabiah World Summit and promote his project to all the members of the Maccabiah Association. The stage was set. The first Maccabiah Games took place in 1932 in what was then the British Mandate of Palestine. This first Jewish Olympic Games successfully brought together 390 athletes from 18 different countries. But Yekutiel was ambitious. He organized a world tour to recruit more athletes for the following games. 3 years later, 1,350 athletes made their way to the Holy Land to participate in the second Maccabiah Games. The outbreak of World War II prevented more games from being held until 1950. These games, the third Maccabiah, were special. They were the first held in the newly established State of Israel. Since then, the number of countries and athletes participating in the games and the number of competitions continues to increase. 890 athletes participated in 1953, and 10,000 are coming for the 2017 Games. From Olympic champion Mark Spitz in the 1970s, the Games have hosted some of the greatest athletes in the world. And they are not only open to Jews, but to people from different religious backgrounds such as Christians and Muslims. From Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, each participant continues to honor Yosef Yekutiel, continuing to live his stubborn vision.
We're taking a short break right now. When we come back, we'll continue to bring you live pictures from Jerusalem.
unflinching, opinionated. Weeknights, David Schuster and Michelle McCory bring you analysis, interviews, and opinions that connect us to the Middle East and the world. Watch Crossroads, weeknights beginning at 6 p.m., only on i24NEWS. This week on Strictly Security, we'll discuss Israeli-Indian security relations following the first ever visit of an Indian premier to Israel. We'll sit down with Yaakov Amidror, the former head of Israel's National Security Council, for an in-depth one-on-one interview. And we'll take you aboard the USS George H.W. Bush, the Nimitz-class super aircraft carrier docked in the port of Haifa. Join Barbara Opal-Rome, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, only on i24NEWS.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us this hour for the special coverage of the opening of the Maccabiah Games in Israel. In just a few minutes, the ceremony will kick off in Jerusalem, and our Jonathan Regev is right there in the Teddy Stadium right now. Jonathan, I see you have a guest with you right there.
Yes, I do. A very important guest, a guest who is in charge of giving the athletes the Maccabiah oath, which is obviously a big event, and that is Noam Gershoni. Noam Gershoni won the gold medal in the 2012 Paralympics in tennis. Noam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So a big task. You have to make sure the athletes are they're honest.
They're honest. They're fair. I know they will play according to the rules. I know. But first of all, it's a privilege and an honor coming here and participating in such a huge ceremony, such a huge event, the Maccabiah, the 20th Maccabiah. And I think it's, in a sense, it's bigger than any other sports event, because people here, it's more important to participate, have fun. Of course, everybody wants to win, but all the games here has a different atmosphere than any other tournament.
You, of course, travel around the world for your tournaments, and of course you have your inspiration story. You were injured as a pilot in the Israeli Air Force, recuperated. Now you're winning gold medals for Israel. How important this tournament is in creating good publicity for Israel among Jews and non-Jews around the world in days which are not very easy for Israeli diplomacy?
Yeah, true. First of all, people from all over the world come here to participate in this tournament. From I think this year we have 80 countries participating, and of course I meet a lot of athletes from all over the world. Their image of Israel is sometimes twisted, so it's all of the people that come here will be ambassadors for Israel and for athletes in Israel, and that's why this event is so important. And it's going to be a full stadium today, and such a great atmosphere already.
So, Noam Gershoni, I know you have a very important text to memorize, so we'll let you go now, because you have to keep the athletes honest. Thank you very much, Noam.
Thank you.
An important job for you. That's it for now. For now, from Teddy Stadium, Tal, get back to us later.
Exactly, Jonathan. Before we go back to Jerusalem, first a story that always shadows the Maccabiah festivities. On a day just like today, exactly 20 years ago, the Maccabiah delegations were getting ready for their march. The delegation from Australia was the second in line. But as the Australian athletes were crossing a bridge to enter the stadium for the opening ceremony, the bridge suddenly collapsed, plunging approximately 100 people into the polluted river below, Hayarkon. A few days ago, the entire Australian delegation to this year's Games attended a commemoration event. Mike Wagenheim has the story.
Time marches on. 20 years gone by now. It was a frantic scene on July 4th, 1997, as a poorly built temporary bridge across from the Ramat Gan Stadium collapsed, and the Australian delegation making their way to the opening ceremony of the Maccabiah Games plunged into the polluted Yarkon River below. The casualties numbered 67, including, ultimately, 4 fatalities.
At the time, I was standing inside the stadium waiting for the Australian team to come in. And when I came out and saw what had happened, it was something which you couldn't imagine.
2 decades later, the Australian delegation to this year's Maccabiah marched across a newer bridge erected in honor of the fallen and paid tribute to those who didn't make it out. The organizers of Maccabiah say they've taken measures to make sure there's never another tragedy like it, and the Australians have shown a willingness, through all the pain and grief, to remain tied to the competition and Israel.
We are talking about a strong and probably one of the most Zionist communities in the world, in the Jewish world. But I would say, especially due to the strength of Maccabi Australia, they succeeded in a way to lead us to reconciliation with the Australian community.
It seems the Australians and Maccabiah organizers are constantly trying to strike a balance between remembering the past and pivoting toward the present. And there may be no greater example of that than Shelley Jackson, whose father, lawn bowler Warren Zines, was among the 4 fatalities, and whose son, Josh, will compete in this year's Maccabiah.
And he will finish the journey that my father began. Le dor vador, from generation to generation. It was with mixed emotions that I suggested to Josh that he trial for the youth football team, and when I found out that he had qualified, there were many tears shed. Both tears of joy for Josh and tears of sadness for my father.
This year's Aussie contingent is 600 strong, its biggest ever. Even the ones born after 1997 have been taught about the accident, and the message to them is clear. The best way to pay your respects to those who didn't make it to the competition is to play your hearts out once you get there. From Ramat Gan, Mike Wagenheim, i24 News.
Well, Simi Rieger, you're here in the studio with me. What do you remember from that day in July of 1997 when you heard about this disaster?
I was sitting in a coffee shop on Dizengoff called Kassit, which the lower lives go there, not the upper class. And we thought somebody was making a joke, a bad joke. We couldn't believe that in 1997 something like this could happen. We know the place, we know the bridge, and it was something that we couldn't fathom. And then we heard that somebody passed, and people got sick, and people got cancer. It was unbelievable. It was shocking. You know, there's certain things in your life. I remember being a kid in the States. You know, you remember where you were when Kennedy got killed, where Robin got killed, and you know, this is something that you'll remember your whole life. It was really, especially people in sports like myself, or was in sports, something like myself.
No, but as a sport journalist and commentator, I mean, this story made big headlines not only in Israel.
All over the world. It was devastating. It was really, really sad. People mourned it. And to see this woman talk about, you know, what happened 20 years ago, it brings back the horrible feelings.
And growing back in the United States, I want to ask you, what was the Maccabiah like?
Well, you know, I'm old.
Yeah, but the Maccabiah, you know, the first Maccabiah took place in 1932. I don't think...
Well, my dad was here then, all right? In 1927, he came to Israel. But, you know, I mean, it was like, it was really important, you know, like in the 50s and 60s, it was really a happening for the Jewish athletes from all over. It wasn't like today where everybody flies all over and everything. It was a big thing, everybody getting together. Usually they were either in New York or a place like Miami, the tryouts for them. And it was really an exciting time. And it was nice seeing everybody get together. It was really a happening.
So what do you assess that? I mean, would you claim that it's not about the sports achievement anymore so much as it used to be?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, today it's more political, bringing kids to Israel, seeing each other, you know, meeting new people, Jewish people that you wouldn't meet normally if you lived in your area throughout the world, seeing what the guys like me, you know, kids like me, you know, seeing the Israeli women, how beautiful they are.
And they are.
And they definitely want to come back, you know what I mean? But it's really, really a nice happening, and it's a good feeling, and I really wish them all the luck in the world.
All right, and we're taking a short break right now. Right after it, we'll be back with more stories from the Maccabiah, and we'll bring you the excitement from the Teddy Stadium in Jerusalem, where the opening ceremony is just about to begin, so don't go too far away.
The trends, the fads, the breakthroughs. Get it all on Trending. From food, music, and art to advances in modern medicine. Weekdays at 8 a.m. Only on i24NEWS. See Beyond. Israel, the Middle East, the world. Get your daily dose every morning on i24NEWS. News from around the world to around the corner. i24 brings you the top stories, the hard news, and analysis you need to know. Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. only on i24NEWS. Go beyond the headlines every Sunday on i24NEWS. Host Ami Kaufman talks to the newsmakers and pundits to bring you the story behind the headlines. The Spin Room with Ami Kaufman, Sundays at 10 a.m. Only on i24NEWS.
i24NEWS.
When you've got only 1 hour for everything you need to know about Israel, the Middle East, and the world, this is the show to watch. We'll give you the breaking news on the people, the places, and the events that matter, quick and to the point.
The Rundown, every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us on our special coverage this hour of the Maccabiah kickoff in Jerusalem. Later on tonight, we'll take you live to the opening ceremony and bring you the speeches of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Reuven Rivlin. But right now, our team there is on the ground absorbing the excitement of 10,000 participants. Jonathan Regev, you're there. Jonathan? Mike Wagenau. Okay, we have Jonathan, we have Mike, and we're with Mike right now. He is inside the basketball arena in Jerusalem that, by the way, will be transformed into an ice hockey rink. Mike, what are you hearing from the Maccabiah participants over there?
So many exciting stories here from the Maccabiah games, including one right now. Adam Moyerman granted the honor of being the American flag bearer going into the stadium. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor. It's going to be exciting, nervous. I hope I don't trip or fall or anything like that, as there's 1,000 athletes behind me from the U.S.
How were you granted the honor?
I don't know. There's actually a committee to choose who are the flag and banner bearers for the U.S. delegation. They have a process. We were all wondering how we all got chosen for all these roles. I guess they just picked me. It's really an honor to be chosen that way, though.
It seems you're just being humble. Now, you compete in judo. What's the competition like this year here at the Maccabiah?
It should be interesting. I actually was planning to fight a heavier weight class when I came over because I was a little heavy. It's been warm here, so I lost a lot of the weight I needed to. I'll be fighting in my normal weight class. Be a large contingent from Latvia, Israel. It should be very interesting and very good. It's really their national sport here, so I'm excited to work out and compete against them again.
Yeah, Israel did terrific at the last Olympics, so great way to measure yourself.
Exactly. I mean, 2 medals, 5th place too. The guy in my weight class actually took the 5th. They've got another guy in my weight class who I don't think is fighting because the World Championships are coming up, but he's ranked in the top 25 in the world currently. So there are no slacks in the sport. We worked out with them a little bit at a training practice earlier in the week. It was really nice to move around and see how their practices work too.
There's definitely a bit of a Zionist tint to these Maccabiah games. Everybody gathering here in Israel. There's been so much controversy lately with the U.S. and the Western Wall situation, the conversion situation. Has there been any talk amongst that within the U.S. delegation, or is everybody concentrating on other things?
I think for the U.S., we did an Israel Connect program, so we've been here for a week and doing a lot of that in the touring. So I think part of that worked into this process. I think now that we're over and through with that, it's shifting mentality a little bit more to the games, but that definitely had an aspect of what was going on with our Israel Connect program to try and understand it from different aspects, having Israeli tour guides and interacting with Israelis here to understand those concepts. And when we go back, we can fully understand them and then be thoroughly involved.
Adam, I know this is going to be one of the highlights of your life. We wish you the best of luck. Make sure you don't trip over anybody and have fun out there, all right?
Thank you very much.
Adam Moyerman, the American flag bearer for tonight's Maccabiah games. Back to you in the studio.
Well, that's for sure going to be something fun for Adam. And now we want to go live to Jonathan Regev. Jonathan, we talked to Adam and Mike there about the judo achievements. And Israel's judo fighters, they have been a force to be reckoned with at the Summer Olympics. 5 out of Israel's total 9 Olympic medals are in the field of judo. And I understand that you met one of the medalists there, right? Jonathan Regev, can you hear me? Maybe Jonathan can't hear me. All right, Stimi Rieger, we'll try to catch up with Jonathan a bit later on tonight. But yeah, let's talk about Israeli achievements so far. We can't say that Israel, to be honest, is a powerhouse when it comes to sports. But if we're talking about sports achievement, Omri Cuspi, NBA player, is definitely one. And just lately, 2 days ago, he signed with Golden State Warriors. How big is it for Cosby's career?
There's pluses and minuses, but the pluses really outweigh the minuses.
Just give me a smile. Celebrate it. We're celebrating Jewish sport.
I'm thrilled.
We have to, yeah.
I mean, I've been with Omri since he was in Narim, which is 14-year-old kids. I've been watching him play along the way, and I have a very close relationship with his dad, who was my officer in the Army, by the way. He was my boss. And Omri signed a contract he was called 1 minute after 12. That means the first phone call that the Warriors made was to Omri, and that shows that they were thinking about him all the time. They weren't waiting for other teams to say, other players to say no. He was #1 on their list, and that's a very interesting thing. You have to understand that Omri, first of all, he's getting less money, but sometimes that's a kickoff for later on in your career. He had a terrible year last year, not his fault. He was hurt. He had a coach that didn't like him, and at the end of the year, he went to Minnesota and the coach Real Thibodeau. I thought he was going to continue there, but he's going to be playing on a team that plays his style of basketball, run and gun, shoots real well. He cuts to the basket. It's a team that plays a lot without the ball, and that's a very important thing. And they like him. Omri's a good kid. You never hear
Well, Israeli basketball fans are going to love it and follow him.
And they're going to listen to me 4 o'clock in the morning.
Your commentary, exactly. That's the best thing. Jonathan Regev, you're here with us now, and describe us the atmosphere there just minutes before the big kickoff.
It's huge. It's huge, Tal, and I think you can see behind me already. The crowds are gathering in, and we see all different flags: British flag, Australian, American, French, you name it. South America, North America, from all over the world. The crowds are coming, and in about a half hour's time, the delegations will come in. The athletes. The atmosphere here is huge. There's a lot of excitement here, and it's only going to grow bigger and bigger in the next 30 minutes. In about a half hour, the ceremony will begin.
Jonathan Regev, thank you so much for this. Stimi Rieger, I have to ask you briefly. You know that for the first time, okay, we don't have time for that, but I'm going to tell you that Israel is going to participate in the ice hockey tournament, and we're going to follow and see what are the chances of the Israeli team there. All right, so as the Maccabiah opening ceremony is about to kick off in Jerusalem, it's time for us to wrap it up in the studio, but we will continue to bring you the highlights from this event later on tonight on i24NEWS with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Reuven Rivlin. We're set to speak there. So thank you for watching, and do stick around for more.